Good evening and welcome to this week's Wednesday webinar, Understanding How to Pay for College. My name is Kimberly Fridley. I am the Membership Development Analyst here at the United States Senate Federal Credit Union. We are honored, really, that you chose to spend some time with us this evening. Please continue to spread the word to your family, your friends, your colleagues, even your neighbors about membership at our credit union. We are committed to taking care of their financial dreams. It is my privilege and honor to introduce our panelist team. We have Carrie Lazar with us. She is the Membership Development Representative in our Marketing Department. We have Milton Aguilar Bolanos. He is our Membership Development Officer. And we are so excited to have subject matter expert on student loans, Suzanne Wilkins. Suzanne Wilkins is a Director of Strategic Partnerships for Credit Union Student Choice, a CUSO that partners with credit unions to provide private student loans and loan options for refinancing student loan debt. Prior to working for Credit Union Student Choice, Suzanne worked in a credit union industry for over 30 years and served as a vice president of lending for a credit union in New Hampshire. Suzanne is passionate about assisting members, understanding how to pay for college, and help recent graduates understand their options and paying down their student loan. Suzanne, we are so happy to have you with us, and you just take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you to the people at United States Senate Federal Credit Union. I am very honored to be here as well. A little bit more about myself that puts things into perspective, and then I'll turn off my video camera because I can't stand looking at myself and talking at the same time. I have two daughters who have been through the college process. And have graduated, and they're on their way. They're adults, and it was very interesting navigating them during this time on how to pay for college. And then now I have a nephew who is a senior in high school who has been accepted to the University of New Hampshire, where we live. And I am helping him navigate these waters. And oh my goodness, I am in the industry and there is a lot to it. I forgot how much there is to this process. So hopefully by the end of this session, I'll be giving you some good resources and some things to think about when you're trying to figure out how to piece all these things together and pay that tuition bill, which is coming up in the next month or two. We'll also touch on a few other things. So I'm going to turn off my camera now. And we will jump right into it. So we're going to be talking a little bit today about what your credit union strategy is for higher ed financing. They look at it as a value-based approach, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that means. I'm going to touch about that FAFSA form, what it's used for, and you know that's not going away anytime soon. You have to fill that FAFSA form out every year that your student is attending school. The award letter, which is probably why you're on the call right now, that award letter can be very confusing at times, and other times very straightforward. So we'll navigate those waters too. We're going to understand what the difference is between federal direct loans and private student loans, how to get that free money, and how to fund that gap once you've exhausted all of the avenues for higher ed. So I think I would be remiss if I didn't give you the first tool of the night would be, I would invite you to go to the College Navigator site. And this is, for those of you that think that you've already chosen your college, why do you need that? It's a really good tool to not only understand your school, but it gives you projections of of what the tuition and fees will be like, or the cost of attendance year over year, the next 4 years. Because as I'm talking through the slides tonight, don't forget you're building a 4 or a 5 year budget. And this is where you can get your numbers in order to do this. It's a really good site. I've used it for my daughters and my nephew. It gives a lot of good demographic information, graduation statistics, job placement, internship information, all of that is out there. But again, the most important thing that I found as a feature is year over year costs. And they break it down by category of whether it's room and board, food, tuition and fees, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll talk about that too in a moment. So the cost of education, unfortunately, in this country is huge. Not going to lie, it is a lot of money. And how do we finance something like this? And the reason why I put up this slide is not to scare anyone off, but to explain the mechanics of your tuition bill. So I'm going to talk specifically tonight about the public 4-year in-state on-campus experience, as well as the private not-for-profit. So I'm pulling out bar number 2 and number 4. Okay, so as you can see, in the public area, you're pulling in about, now this is nationwide, national averages, about $27,000 a year. And the private schools are looking at about $55,800 a year. Now, realistically, in the Northeast or on the East Coast, we have a lot of really good universities and colleges. So that actually, that price tag is probably around, gosh, my nephew's going in-state on campus and is pulling at $37,000 a year. Okay, now I know the private schools come in minimally at $60,000, $62,000. I see it as high as $79,000, $80,000 for some schools. So again, how do you finance something like that? So I want to draw your attention to the dark blue area of that bar graph. So that represents the tuition and fees. Anything beyond that dark blue area is what we call flexible costs, okay? That's where you can make the most difference. The small choices that you make along the way add up. That's what we're trying to do, making small choices, smart choices, right? So tuition and fees, again, are in the dark blue area, and the rest, that flexible area, is where we see the room and board, books and supplies, transportation, and other expenses. So in a few moments, I'll tell you how, some tips and tricks on how to save that, save those flexible costs, maybe bring that cost down a little bit with some advice or some tips that I've learned through the years. So let's get into what your credit union sort of approaches higher ed financing. How they do that is a value-based approach. They first want to encourage you to get free money, then the cheap money, and then what do you do with that gap, right? So real quickly, I'm going to touch on the free money first. Grants, they're free money, but they're also with a stipulation, okay? So the thing that comes to mind on grant money is a teaching grant, up to $4,000. So if your student accepts a grant, just know that if they change their mind on that major, those grants can be turned back into student loans. So I go in as a teacher, a teaching major, and then in year 2, I change my mind. I want to be an accountant. And those grants that I have already been given could be turned into student loans. So just know that. Number 2, scholarships. So there are 2 types of scholarships in my mind, how I'd like to categorize them. The first are the scholarships that are garnered from filling out the FAFSA form, right? And then the second type of scholarship, what I call private scholarships or external scholarships, come from affiliations such as civic organizations like the Rotary Club, or religious affiliations, or it could come from your employer or your student's part-time employer. Those are the different types of scholarships that we're going to dive into a little bit deeper in this session. And then Finally, there's work study. So what is work study? First of all, in order to qualify on the FAFSA form, you have to ask, there's a question about, are you interested in work study? The answer is yes or no. If you say yes, then you might be eligible for work study. And what this is a part-time job for expenses. It's usually on the campus. And it is first come, first serve. Okay, so those are the three different types of free, basically, money that you have. The cheap money is federal direct loans. Okay, these are loans directly to the students now. This is the best game in town still the lower interest rate out of all options that I've seen out there so far. So you never want to say no to the federal direct loans. And then there's the gap. Okay, so once you take advantage of your free money, then you take advantage of your direct loans, you have this leftover amount that you have to either pull out of your savings account or get a loan for. Okay, so there are, if you had that opportunity, that's a wonderful thing. There are other options such as like I said, private student loans or PLUS loan, that parent loan for undergraduate students. Again, we'll give you more details on that in a minute. And then there are what's called tuition payment plans. I wanted to make you aware of this. And what this is that it just puts that gap on a payment plan. It's usually about 10 months, 9 or 10 month payment plan with the school directly. And you pay a fee to set this up on a payment plan, anywhere from, I would say, $20 to $60, $75 is the fee usually, but it can vary by school. And what it does is it gives you the ability not to roll everything into a student loan, right? So now you're probably thinking, well, Suzanne, what if I have a gap of $10,000 or $20,000? I can't put that on a payment plan. That's crazy. And I would absolutely agree with you, but I would suggest that you put $1,000 of that gap in a tuition payment plan. That's $100 a month. Maybe the parent pays $50 and the student pays $50. That's $1,000 less you have to roll into student loans, right? And then you multiply that by 4 or 5 years. That's $4,000 or $5,000 you don't have to roll into a student loan. So that's what a tuition payment plan is. I would, if you're interested in something like that, go to your school. It's usually found on the bursar's website. It could be found on the financial aid website of the school that your student is attending. So those are the options. Now, if you're fortunate to have all of these avenues, savings, home equity, you can get approved for a private loan, you're going to get a PLUS loan. That's wonderful. But what options do you take? There's a lot of times when I do these events, a lot of times people ask me afterwards, well, I have a 529 plan, which is an education savings account. Should I use it all up front? Should I do it over 4 years? What should I do? And I really couldn't tell them because I don't know the financial structures of their own budget, right? But I do offer some resources. Number one, go to your credit union. A lot of times these credit unions have financial counselors or financial planners that they can help guide you in making the right decision. Or you can go to financial planners outside of the credit union, or even go to your CPA. It's good to have someone that counsels you if you have all of these different options, because there are a lot out there and you shouldn't navigate this alone, for sure. So where does financial aid begin? Well, it begins with the free application for federal student aid. That's the FAFSA forms, okay? Now, the good thing about this, there's a good and bad thing. The bad thing is that it usually takes about 60 minutes to complete. If you have all the paperwork in front of you, could maybe 45 minutes. And people do find it complicated at times, but they do have wonderful resources to help you through it. This form usually comes out October 1st of every year. So as soon as they release this, parents and students should be all over it, because federal aid is first come, first serve. So the quicker you fill out this form, the better chances you have of getting financial aid. Okay, but guess what? This coming year, this next year, okay, they usually release the forms October 1st. Well, this October 1st, they're putting on a hold, and they're going to release it sometime in December because they have huge changes coming on board. And it's more consumer friendly, right? So that's the best news that I have heard for a long time. I don't know when the exact date of that is coming out yet, so stay tuned. I would suggest you bookmark studentaid.gov site. That is a really good site to become very familiar with because they make announcements there. You can get a whole bunch of information on grants, scholarships, their federal direct program, their PLUS loans, GRADS loans, everything is out there. So just make sure that you keep that bookmarked. Studentaid.gov is the site. Okay, so once you complete your FAFSA form, okay, your student should receive what's called a student aid report, a SARS report, within 7 to 10 days. So most of you on the call probably already have it, especially if you're seniors. If you don't worry. Just check your email. It should be in your email. And if you still don't find it in your email, talk to your financial aid office of the school that you've been admitted to, okay? They'll have that information. Now, when the student receives the aid report, the school that they want to go to also receives the same information on what's called an ISA report, Institutional Student Information Record. Okay, and that's where they pull, the financial aid officer pulls information, and what's on that form is your demographic information, your financial information, and up to 10 schools your student wants to share this information with, right? So they use that form. Now, if they have any questions, they will contact the student or the parent of the student. This has already happened to me on my nephew's FAFSA. I filled out one question wrong, believe it or not. And they I think they emailed us. Yes, they emailed us, and we just had to straighten it out with them. But if you have any questions on anything regarding the FAFSA form, you should talk to your financial aid officer. That's your lifeline. Your student should become very familiar with financial aid officers. They are the angels of this process. They're there actually to help you along. The only thing is that this time of year, they're super busy. But I would suggest that your student occasionally make their face known to them, because those financial aid officers know scholarships. They know scholarships that come across their desk. And if they know that your son or daughter is looking for scholarships, they'll remember them and they might bring it to their attention. So just a tip along the way. Now, once you fill out your FAFSA form, your financial aid form, it opens up different doors to financial aid. So you could get scholarships and grants, federal work study program like we spoke about before, the direct loans. You could get institutional loans. So what that means is this school might have their own student loan program. Parents could get the PLUS loan, okay, and any other additional loans that the schools might have. So a lot of times I hear parents say to me, I'm not going to fill out the FAFSA form. I'm not going to get federal aid anyway. Why even complete it? And I understand their frustration. I get it. Okay. However, I'm going to encourage everyone to still complete the FAFSA form, because without that FAFSA form, the financial aid department of that school has nothing to go on. So they might not give you any aid. Okay, so there is still a chance that, yes, you might be denied federal aid, but you might get aid from the college that your student is attending, above and beyond the federal, Department of Education. So just keep that in mind. Now, I love talking about award letters because I think that they can be very confusing to some people for very different reasons. So in this country, our governing power, the CFPB, published a white paper on how to make award letters simple to read, right? And they put this wonderful template in place. But the problem is only a third of schools in this country follow that format. The other 2/3 do not. Okay, so it makes it very confusing, number one, from school to school. And number two, there could be a lot of hidden costs not really readily available and in that award letter. So we're going to break this down to just give you an example. Now, this is sort of like middle of the road, a sample award letter. We're going to go through it because what your goal is to understand what your net cost will be. So your net cost is the cost of the attendance to go to school there, minus any grants or scholarships. And then you should also subtract any savings that you have available to put towards your school. This is what's called net cost. Okay, so in this example, under the estimated cost section, you can see tuition and fees, housing and meals, books and supplies, transportation, and personal expenses. They spell it out very clearly here for an estimated total cost of $28,196 to the far right, okay? Some schools break it down by semester, fall, and spring. Other schools lump it all together in one academic year, okay? So the cost of attendance is $28,196. The things that you have to be aware of is that if your award letter does not look like this, and it just shows you the total cost of attendance and a number without breaking it down, I would caution you. I want to, you need to make sure that you understand what that overall cost of attendance includes. Because let's say if this was, if it didn't have any line items, tuition, housing, books, all of that, didn't have it, they just showed the total cost of attendance, $28,000. Well, what happens in June or July when tuition is actually due, and that number jumps to $35,000 because they didn't list all the books, the housing. They have to list tuition and fees, but they don't have to list all this other stuff. So just make sure that you understand what the total cost of attendance is. That is super important. So then you'll get a financial offer, a package, so to speak. Okay. And in this case, this person received a merit scholarship totaling $6,998 for the whole year. They got a teaching grant of $4,000. Remember, that can be turned into a student loan if you change your major. So the total amount of free money is $10,998. So that's the amount that you subtract from your total cost of attendance to come up with your net cost of $17,198. Okay. Now this is where it gets confusing. Now, picture you're an 18-year-old looking at this for the first time. Yeah, most 18-year-olds have not had experience with taking out loans. And most 18-year-olds, like I would absolutely agree with, they look at the letter and it says an award letter. Okay, everything is free. This is my award. But let's break it down. Here's where we get confusing. They offered this person two direct loans. One's a subsidized federal loan. The other is an unsubsidized federal loan. Okay, so that's a total of, for the subsidized loan, we'll get into what that means in a minute. Subsidized loan of $1,443. The direct unsubsidized is $4,001, right? That totals $5,444. That is a loan. But look at the bottom line here. It looks like they reduced that estimated net cost. They took out the loans. So it looks like you only owe $11,754, right? So when you're actually, there is two student loans in there. So that's why I say the net cost really makes a difference when you understand what the net cost is, and then you can, add in those student loans. So again, I hope this wasn't too confusing for you. I know that this is probably a really hot topic button when I do these seminars, especially on site. People will bring their award letter to me and ask me literally to read them line by line what it means. But hopefully this will be helpful to you. Now, talked a lot about an award letter, but what I need you to understand, okay, is that there are fixed costs again and flexible costs built in to that award letter, and it is not written in stone. So there are ways that you can save money or get money taken off of that award letter if there's certain things that have happened to you in the course of 2 years. Now, why do I say 2 years? Is because when you filled out that FAFSA form, that information was from 2 years ago. A lot can happen in 2 years. Things that come to mind are death, disability, divorce, escalating debt, bankruptcy. And it doesn't have to be as catastrophic as that. It could be, I'm taking care of my mother at home, and I have another daughter who is in private education. And this is really, I'm really struggling to make ends meet. The FAFSA form doesn't share that information, right? And the financial aid officer doesn't understand your family circumstances unless you pick up the phone and either appeal. There are appeal forms out there on the school's website. And I would encourage you to do that. Because the more that you can have these conversations, the chances are that you might get even more money off of your award letter. Now, there's also another way that I wanted to share with you, another tip that I have, and this has been proven by some of my attendees. I would say that another time to ask for more money off of your award letter is the best time is in June, the first 2 weeks of June. And why I say that is that in this country, most schools need an answer by students, whether they're going to be enrolled or not, by May 1st. Most of you seniors on the phone, you've already made that decision by now, right? So the university's student roster is locked in right now. So let's say the University of New Hampshire sent out 500 packages and only 200 came back. 200 students say, yes, I want to enroll in UNH in the fall. Well, they're sitting on 300 packages out there that haven't been used up, right? So it's a good time to go back and, how you ask that would be, please use some discretion, right? You just can't say, hey, you guys charge way too much money. Can you, give me more money off of my bill? How I would coach you is, look, my student has demonstrated interest in this school. This is what they've been doing. This, they have done all of the tours. They can't wait to be on your campus for these reasons. We had other offers. We chose your school for this reason. And a lot of times you'll find that they might take some of that money out of your financial aid package. So that's a good thing. I would now, it's not a sure thing. If you never try there, you're not going to lose anything if you try, right? So just keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to save some money off of that bill. You might be charged, let's say, $4,000 for rent, which is room and board, $3,000 for food, $2,000 for books, $750 for personal expenses, and $250 for transportation. But that doesn't mean that you can't save in this category. Now, the caveat to this is that incoming freshmen sort of have their hands tied. Whereas in year 2, 3, and 4, they're a little bit more liberal in how they offer packages. So that first year, like my nephew is required to live on campus for the first 2 years. After that, he could save money living off campus, living with me or living in an apartment around the school or whatever have you, right? Or in year 2, 3, and 4, he could be an RA for one of the houses and get that rent or that room and board removed from his bill. You could, that first year, instead of rooming with just one other person, maybe you look into having your students stay in a suite. Now, of course, you have to take into consideration how they learn and the distractions, the day-to-day distractions, and how that would affect their learning. But that could be another way to save money on rent. Now, food, you're going to be offered Cafeteria Plan A, which is the Cadillac of food plans, right? It could feed 1.5 to 2 people, in my opinion. So again, incoming freshmen really don't have an option. They have to choose that payment plan. But in year 2, 3, and 4, it opens up and you'll get to choose Cafeteria Plan A, B, C, and D. D being rice, ramen noodles, etc. Okay. So that could be a way. Now, there was one tip where I had a student say, well, at the end of my freshman year, I sold my food credits back to the school and they took it off my tuition bill, which is wonderful. Not all schools do that, but you might want to check if you can. The other, another student said she sold her credits to a football player who needed more food. So I thought that was creative. So there are ways to save money in that category. Now, books. These books are crazy expensive if you buy through the university brand new. And honestly, I should update this slide. I keep on reminding myself I should, but books cost anywhere between $250 to $350 right now for a book. Okay. That's a lot of money. So what I would suggest students do is, and only with the permission of the professor, okay, buy used books, or you can rent books on Amazon for $6 a month. If you do have to buy a new book, depending on your major, maybe you sell the books back at the end of the year to the school and to recoup some of that money. There is a really another creative way to save money on books, and I have had professors agree with me and confirm that they do this. So what students, what professors do, some professors do, is they buy, anywhere from 3 to 6 books a year and set them aside just to have these specific conversations. Okay. Now, I preface this with the student has to have what we call skin in the game in order to have this conversation with the professor. So what is skin in the game with regards to books? A book account. I don't care how much money you have in there. There could be $100, $2,000, whatever the student could afford to put money away for those books would be what I call skin in the game. And that student can go to the professor confidently and say, look, I have an expense for books. I have an account. These books are really expensive. Is there a way that you can save me money when it comes to the books? And professors might give them a free book or lend them a book, not give them, but lend them a book for the year. So that's another creative way to save the cost on that. Transportation, we really can't move the needle on costs. It is what it is. You have to get to the classroom. But personal expenses, this is where I'm going to get on my soapbox, because this is where I think a lot of students go wrong. And you hear it in the media all the time. So this is what I call excess distribution of funds. Okay, so remember when I talked about the cost of attendance minus that free money, there's that gap, right? And a lot of us have to take out student loans for that gap. So you send all that money into the school, all your scholarships, all the proceeds of those loans goes to the school, and they take out all the tuition and fees and room and board and books and all of that. And sometimes there's money left over. There's credit, especially to those students that live off campus, because they can use that money to pay their rent. Okay. Some students, so the school will put the credit in the account. Okay, whether it's $4,000, $5,000, whatever it is. And the a debit card will be issued against that account, whether it's the student's debit card or the school's debit card. that student will take that debit card, go to the local cafe and put a $5 cup of coffee on that debit card and walk away without even thinking about it. Well, where did the source of those funds come from? That $5 cup of coffee was financed over 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, because it derived from a student loan backing it up. So this is the number one regret that a lot of soon-to-be graduates from college talk to me about. They say, gosh, I wish I would have, put two and two together. It was just so easy to use the money. It was there. I could go on a spring break, trip or whatever have you. So just make sure that you know that any credit that you get or any leftover money you can put on your student loan. There's no prepayment penalty. You can put lump sum amounts whenever you want on student loans. It's illegal to charge prepayment penalties on any type of student loan, whether it's federal or private. So I'm off my soapbox now, so let's continue. Let's talk a little bit about scholarships. Now, scholarships are free money, right? And it's usually paid directly to the school. Some scholarships can be paid directly to the student, right? And you can win it based on merit, based on your participation in athletics, academic clubs. There's so many different ways that you can get scholarships, okay? And when you look into scholarships, and we're going to tell you where to find it in a minute, you have to understand whether it's a one-time scholarship or it's a renewable scholarship, because don't forget, you're building that 4-year budget. So you need to understand that. Okay, these don't have to be paid back. Again, it is free money and anyone could get a scholarship. There are so many different reasons out there. There's a scholarship for left-handed people. There's a scholarship for people with purple hair. It's crazy the amount of scholarships that are out there. So where do you find them? These are national dependable websites that you can go to look for scholarships. My only warning on these is that they're national and they're really not as easy to win as the local scholarships, right? But you can definitely, I encourage everyone to go out and take a look at this. There is one, the only one that is not a scholarship is this Scholly, this little dog, this red dog. That is an application for your phone. And I believe it costs money, a nominal fee to load it onto your phone. But what the student can do is fill out a 10-question survey with GPA and major and so on and so forth. And what it does is it comes back with all of these scholarships that they could be eligible for, the deadlines, what they have to do for the scholarships. It also has essay templates out there. So it's pretty robust. And it's something I don't get paid by the people at Scholly. We just found this to be helpful. I actually used it for my daughters and my nephews. So check it out. So how else do you go for scholarships? After you've talked to your guidance counselor at the high school, or you talk to your financial aid officers at college, what are the other avenues? And one that I found that was helpful is obviously Google. So you go out there and you type in your major, then you type the word association, and then type the word scholarship. So if I'm a teaching major, I'll do teaching association scholarship, and I get a whole bunch of information on scholarships. Okay, now the first couple of scholarships on the slide here, that's going to be your biggest dollar amount. So a lot of people are going to go for it. So it'll make it harder to get these scholarships. So I would suggest going all the way down to the bottom and seeing those $500, those $1,000 scholarships, those scholarships that people don't want to apply for. I think that that's what you should be doing baby steps. Everything adds up. Another search that I found useful is that if you typed in your county that you lived in, plus the foundation, plus the word scholarship, you can find a lot of information. You can find information for your employer groups. Oh my gosh, there's so many different types of where you can go to get scholarships. Now, the tips that I have for you for scholarships is that you have to get in the money-making mindset. It should be a part-time job during your summer months. And when you should start looking for scholarships is the end of your junior year until you graduate college. I don't want you stopping at your senior year. You should be looking for scholarships every year that you go to school. How long, should this take? I would say about an hour to an hour and a half every week in the summer months should get you a pretty good results. Because don't forget, the first couple of scholarships, it'll be clunky. You'll have to do an essay. There's certain things that you have to do. But once you get a core essay, you sort of can tweak it for every other scholarship, right? You need to build that scholarship list so that you can come back to it every year. Again, the first year is going to be a little bit clunky and difficult, but once you have a list you can go back to, it'll be easier every year that you go back. Make sure you follow all the instructions. If a scholarship is asking you to fill it out in red crayon, that's what you do. You fill it out in red crayon. They are vetting this. And please make sure that there are no spelling errors, grammatical errors. Make sure you take the time with your essays and have someone else read it. I am on a scholarship committee. My other co-workers are on the scholarship committees. This is how we vet it. I see something that is not, grammatically correct. I'm on to the next application. I don't even look at it. So make sure, because we have a lot to go through. So make sure that you take that time. Include your job history. That's really important, especially those part-time jobs. Some students have to bring in money to the home, so they cannot participate in extracurricular activities. As a committee member, I take a look at job history. I think it's really important, and how many hours you work there. If you're required to produce reference letters, make sure that the person that you're asking to generate that reference letter has your student resume, which is all of the accomplishments from day one, your freshman year to today, right? You give them your student resume. All they have to focus on is your character, and they'll be able to write your letters with ease, right? Because they have, usually the people that you pick are the most popular people that get chosen to write these reference letters. So make sure you make it as easy as possible for them, because they have a lot to write. And then, of course, you're going to highlight any community involvement. Now, some other tips that I want you to be aware of is you might want to steer clear of any scholarships involving luck, such as drawings, anything that has the word sweepstakes or lotteries, or this is very easy to complete. There's no essay, because these quote unquote scholarship committees are looking to basically sell your information to others. So just be careful with those. The worthwhile scholarships are the ones with a competitive element in it that requires you to write an essay. It has multiple sections. So again, it is worthwhile. And, one of those tips, I did say that you should start your scholarship list. Well, the best way to do it is right around this time. There are a lot of scholarship nights or award nights in the area. Take the brochure. And in those brochures, they list out all the scholarships they're handing out that night. So that could be the start of your list. Okay. So just a few tips on that. Now, I'm putting up the scholarships. I'll have you just read through that yourselves. But I did want to share one story that's always been impactful for me. And I swore that I will always say this story when I do these presentations. I have a coworker, like I said, who serves on a committee, and one year she was giving out a $40,000 scholarship. And this young man won the $40,000. And in his acceptance of the award, he thanked the committee members, but he also wanted to know what won him that scholarship. Was it his GPA? Was it his involvement in the school? He had a lot of extracurricular activities and a lot of volunteer work. What was it? And the answer blew my mind then, and it still blows my mind today. The answer was he was the only one that applied. Now, wow. When I heard that story, I thought back to the days of my children. Again, I have two daughters. The first daughter, my firstborn, is a type A personality, and she always did everything that I asked her to do. And I would come home at night and I would ask her, hey, Monique, have you done your scholarship searches? And she would send me all these lists. And yes, I have. I've done this, I've done that. And she did really well. She got a good financial package by doing that. Fast forward to 2 years in the future, my youngest daughter now, that was her turn. And I had her do the same thing. And I would get home and, my Sarah is a little bit laid back, deadline doesn't mean anything to her. So I would ask her, hey, have you done this? And she would come back. She was a good student. Don't get me wrong. She was a very good student. And she came back to me and she's like, I don't qualify for any of these that you've told me to look them up. And I was like, are you sure? So then I thought, back to this story that I just shared with you. It's really a psychological journey. Your typical 17, 18-year-old, their self-confidence, their self-worth, right? That's a whole other subject matter for another night. We have to really help them along. And I encourage students now, I don't care what the criteria is, apply, put the amount and energy and effort into these, and you'll reap the rewards for sure. So I'm not going to go into grants. I've already talked about it. I just wanted to show you what grants, what different types of grants are out there under the Department of Education. Again, studentaid.gov is where you would go for more information on these grants. So I encourage you to do so. But I really wanted to talk about those federal direct loans that are going to be made to your students. Okay. The parent is not on the loan. This is loans made by the Department of Education directly to the student. The student has to be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen with a valid Social Security number. They've had to have their high school diploma, GED, or pass a homeschooling test. They have to be enrolled in an eligible program as a regular student seeking a degree or certificate, and they have to be making satisfactory academic progress in the industry. That's called a SAP. You might hear it referred to as SAP. Every school's level of SAP is different. And the reason why this is important, that is, if SAP decreases, so grades decrease significantly, funding can be withheld. So, you might get a federal direct loan on your award letter for the fall, but let's say in the spring your student your grades decline, they can withhold giving you any more student loans. So make sure you understand what that SAP is. So there are two different direct loans. There's the subsidized and the unsubsidized loan. So the subsidized direct loan is awarded to eligible students based on financial needs. So what that means is that the government pays the interest while the student is in school. Right now, that interest rate is fixed at 4.99% with a loan fee of 1.057%. That percentage comes right off the top of that loan. So that means parents have to pay for that fee, that loan fee, right? Or the student, one or the other. Still the best game in town. The term on this loan is 10 years. Okay. Now there's another direct loan called the unsubsidized loan, and that's awarded to all eligible students. And this is not needs-based, so everyone can qualify for this. So the student is responsible to pay the interest. However, that payment can be deferred while the student is in school. So no payments until 6 months after graduation. Okay. And the interest rate is fixed as well. Same interest rate, same loan fee. Now, the Department of Education comes out in the month of June. They'll come out with rate changes, and I'm expecting that there will be a rate change on this, especially with where rates have been going this past year. So keep your eye on that studentaid.gov site and make sure you'll see the latest and greatest in that area in regards to rates. Now, with those direct loans to your student, the most that an incoming freshman can get is $3,500 in subsidized loans. The most that you can get in an unsubsidized loan is up to $5,500, okay? And the limits increase with the years. So sophomores, juniors, seniors, they get a little bit more. Now, I put some independent student loan limits up here just to have a quick conversation about that. A lot of incoming freshmen think that they are independent students when they actually aren't. There are a lot of stipulations in regards to being an independent student. And, you know, sometimes I hear the typical 18-year-old will say, well, my parents, you know, love the fact that I got into school, but they can't help me or they won't help me with my tuition. So that makes me an independent student. And unfortunately, that's not the definition. So if there's that case, I would seek assistance from your financial aid officer, because there are some students out there whose parents refuse to fill out the FAFSA form. So I would, if I was a student that in that predicament, I would talk to your financial aid officer. So what are the other options that you can get? Well, as a parent, you can get what's called the PLUS loan, the parent loan for undergraduate students. Now, this is different than the direct loan made only to your student. This will be in only your name. You cannot add your students onto this PLUS loan, okay? And it is made by the Department of Education. It is credit-based, okay? So if you do get denied this student loan, that automatically allows your student to be open to a little bit more financial aid. So you would have to talk to your financial aid officer about that. But the plus about this PLUS loan, right, is the borrowing limit is just the cost of attendance minus any financial aid. Okay, so that's the limit. Okay, but look at that interest rate. It's fixed at 7.54%. It is a 10-year term, by the way, but look at that origination fee. It's typically over 4%, okay? Now, the rates are reviewed about mid-May on the PLUS loan. And what we're expecting is that rate is gonna go up over 8%, probably, you know, I hate to guess, but if I had to, probably around 8 and 8.3, 8.4, could be even higher, okay? And I don't know what they're going to do with that origination fee. That fee is so high, they let you finance it into the loan. Okay, so we really have to, you know, when that comes along, you have to really stop and see that there are other paths to take with that PLUS loan. Okay, instead of receiving that PLUS loan, because some PLUS loans are on an award letter, just like the direct loans are. You don't have to take direct loans. You don't have to take the PLUS loan. It's totally up to you. It is an option, but there are other options out there, specifically private student loans. So what private student loans are is it just an option for a loan that's not under the umbrella of the Department of Education. So the people that basically, quote unquote, run private student loans could be credit unions, banks, fintech companies. You can find them all over, okay? And what it does is, you know, the rates vary by institution because they are set, this product is set by the actual institution, not the Department of Education. Now, there could be origination fees. I haven't seen any in my area, but if you do have origination fees, it could be as high as 3%. But again, you know, it's highly competitive out there, and you probably won't receive an origination fee if you get a private student loan. Terms on there on private student loans can go anywhere from 5 to 25 years. And it does require a co-borrower because there are underwriting criteria, FICO, your credit score, debt to income requirements on this, because these are larger loans than the federal loans, right? The federal loans, incoming freshmen, 5,500, right? Private student loans can be much higher than that. Okay, and the options for those payments could be similar to what the direct loans through the federal government offers. So what I mean by that is there's either interest only payments while the student is in school, deferred payments, so no payments are expected while the student is in school, or full payments expected. So a lot of times parents will ask me, well, what option should I pick? I would counsel you that you choose the deferment option and pay the interest. Okay, and the reason why I say choose the deferment option and not choose the interest only payment option is that if you choose interest only payment and you miss a payment, it goes against your credit. But if you get a deferment and you make payments on and off whenever you want to, it doesn't affect your credit until your student graduates and then they go into repayment. So I would always choose deferment and pay like I have interest only payments or full payments, depending on my financial situation. So that's what a private student loan is. Your credit union offers a private student loan solution with no origination or prepayment penalty fees. So that's a really good option. They do offer 0.25% rate discount with automatic payments. And they offer those flexible repayment options. Like I said, 5 years, no payments, interest only payments, or full payments while the student is in school. Okay. Now you could possibly get released from this private student loan after making 4 years of consecutive on-time payments by the student, right? Now, that's not something automatic. You would have to request it, and we would have to do a whole new application to see if we can get you off that loan. But when you're comparing this private student loan to the PLUS loan, think the PLUS loan is 10 years, right? The private student loan, you could basically come off of it in 4 years. So just keep that in mind. Just know that this private student loan that United States Senate Federal Credit Union offers is a very unique loan, is because it's a line of credit. Okay, you only have to apply once during the 4 years that you're going to school, which makes it really convenient. It lines you up for 4 years so that you don't have to worry about where the money's coming from, and you can get up to $75,000 in a line of credit. Okay, so I encourage you to go to your credit union's website, and it will give you more information on their loan. And what this website is, if you go to ussfcu.studentchoice.org, you can go to this website. You'll see 3 tiles. The first tile is pay for college. So that's anything undergraduate, anything that we've been talking about here today. You could probably get drilled down when you click on this tile. Student loan refinance, that's information if you want to consolidate your student loans, but that's a discussion for another time. And then this log into my account. When you apply with United States Senate Federal, you will ask to open up an account so that we can share the process with you on private student loans. Okay, so this is where you'll find your application. This is where you'll upload documents to do the underwriting for this loan. This is where we will upload documents to you so that you can see what you're signing. So it's a very robust platform. But what I would encourage you to do also is see this little support area up here. It's a drop down. And if you click on that, you'll get this page. Okay, you'll click on College Access Counselor and you'll get this page. And this is free to you. You don't, as a member, but if you have any friends that aren't members, I encourage them to go here as well because it's free for them. And what it does is we have someone on staff. Her name is Trisha Popslian. She has over 30 years of experience in the student loan industry. And you can either ask her a question via email, or you can schedule an appointment with her to talk to her about your situation one-on-one. Her scheduler is out there, and she, the phone call could be anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes long, depending on your situation. So she'll talk to you about everything that I've been talking about here tonight, even those that do have student loans and are looking to refinance them in the future. She has a lot of good information about that. I know that there's a lot of confusion in the industry with the payment pause and the Supreme Court, and when that's coming out, what's going to be the decision and how we're going to handle all of that. So again, she can help you along with that studentaid.gov site, your co-branded website with your credit union as well. So I am going to stop there. I know that there was a lot tonight and I went through it real fast. And I was wondering if there are any questions.
Wow, Suzanne, you are amazing. You didn't miss a beat, and we do have a lot of questions for you.
Okay, all right. That's what I like. Okay.
If your student is attending a university outside of the United States, can federal student loans still be accessed through FAFSA?
That's a really good question. It depends. It really does depend on your situation. I have personally used this private student loan for my daughter who was going to school in DC, and then she did a few semesters abroad. So, and there was a sister school out there, so I could use that loan for that because I was going through her main United States college to get to there. But if you're looking to finance, Oxford or Cambridge, that's something that we couldn't do. We only do universities on our pre-approved school list. It is found on that co-branded website, so you can definitely look to see who qualifies. If like, for example, Georgetown has a lot of sister schools, and that's basically who I dealt with. I had no problem with a private student loan. So I hope that answers that one. And, oh, I'm sorry, if a student is attending university outside of the US, can federal student loans still be accessed through the FAFSA? Yeah, again, I would talk to the financial aid office of the school that you're dealing with, because they hold all the cards. They have all of the control on that, and they would say either yes or no. So.
Right. You want me to read the next one out?
Yeah, if you could, I'm sorry.
No, I love doing that like Vanna. If you have twins entering college, can you get 2 of those loans from the credit union, or are you still maxed at 75,000?
So I'm not sure. You would have to talk to your credit union about that. They do have internal loan policies on that where they have maximum unsecured limits. So I would, we'll probably have to get back to you on that question. I'm assuming, unless someone on the panel knows.
Kim Friedley, do you?
This is Milton. My understanding, obviously, if a loan is going to have 2 different individuals in it, then we can go ahead and expand. So we can do the 75,000 per individual applying. So since one of the parents is a co-signer, they can co-sign for multiple loans. So the answer will be yes.
Yes, very good.
Thank you, Milton. Does the student or the parent apply for the private loan at USSFCU?
In most cases, both the student and the parent apply. So it's usually the student's name first, and the parent name second. That does not mean to say that if someone like myself wants to go back to school, I probably wouldn't need a cosigner because I have a job and I have credit. But usually your typical incoming freshman doesn't have those qualifications. That's why they need the co-borrower.
And then we have the same question as the twins, but back-to-back kids. Milton, that still applies, correct?
That is correct. Yes. Yes. And again, like what Suzanne was alluded to, every time whenever there's a loan that they're applying for, it's a student applying for it, and they utilizing a co-signer, so the co-signer can be a co-signer in multiple loans. So yes, that's fine.
Yeah, and the co-signer, by the way, doesn't have to be a parent. It could be just someone that qualifies for that loan.
Do you have any suggestions for approaches to paying for college if parents of a student are divorced and the parents have different viewpoints on financing options?
Yeah, that's dicey. I would say, first of all, there is a little short video on the FAFSA for students with divorced parents. Okay, number one. And I hate to say too much about that subject matter right now, because there's going to be a lot of changes with parents who are single or who are divorced on that FAFSA form. So that's number one. Number two, the philosophy of, if one parent doesn't want to pay and the other one does, and maybe one makes more money and the other one doesn't, I would have a conversation with your financial aid officer. Just explain the situation, especially if you're the one that's making less money. And just explain it, and maybe that there are programs within the university, or they might give you an added break on that award letter. Again, I can't speak for the school itself, but I always counsel people to talk to the financial aid officer. The more you talk to them, the more you become comfortable with them, your student becomes comfortable with them, the better off you are.
All right, Eddie, any questions in the chat box? I did the Q&A.
I'm looking. And Suzanne, that was a great presentation. Per usual, you always do an amazing job. So thank you for being part of the presentation today. We knew that when we contact you, we contact the right person. So thank you for what you know. I actually learned so many new things this evening as well. I'm always learning new things, whether it's Milton presenting, Suzanne, Carrie, even Kim, I'm always learning from everybody.
Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. And I hope that for those of you that are still on the line, I wish you well. It's an exciting time. It is scary, but you have people there along the way. Please ask for help, because this is not something easy to navigate. I am navigating, like I said, with my nephew, and there are certain things that are confusing for me that I had to call the financial aid officer and say, hey, I'm not quite sure what I'm reading here. So please don't be intimidated by it, because it's not, there's a lot of variables going on at the same time.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. I truly appreciate you coming on board again. And one of the things I also wanted to mention, and I believe that there might have been a question also that was thrown in there as to whether or not we have, we do have counselors here at the credit union. But you also mentioned a great point, Suzanne, and that is that we also have a financial advisor from Fellows, who can also sit down with you and go over and kind of like help you guide and create a path to towards paying for college. And talking of which, in 2 weeks we're actually going to do a presentation on 529 accounts, so it's perfect timing. So for those that are interested, stay tuned. We are going to be doing a presentation in 2 weeks with our financial advisor, Michael from Fellows, related to 529 accounts. With that being said, I don't believe there's any more questions. So Suzanne, again, thank you so much. Carrie, did you have something?
Yeah, so I will share those counseling resources out, and also we will have the recording of the video ready, and I'll send the slides after we end here tonight. The recording will be ready hopefully tomorrow, if not the following day, and then I'll send you the video of the recording. So yeah,
Perfect.
that was it.
Thank you. Thank
My
you so
pleasure,
much.
everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you,
Thank
Eddie.
you, everybody. Bye-bye.